All right, welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into, literally in some ways, a massive, existential survival story. It's a look at human ingenuity pushed to its absolute limits. We're talking about an epic battle fought not with weapons, but with earth, wind, concrete, and just sheer willpower. We're looking at the Netherlands, a nation that has been locked in a 2,000-year war against an absolutely unrelenting enemy, the sea itself.
So you got to ask yourself a question that honestly defies logic. When you look at a map of this highly developed European powerhouse, bustling cities, huge international airports, those endless beautiful tulip fields, you're looking at a place that, technically speaking, shouldn't exist. By all the standard rules of geography, much of this country should just be the open ocean.
Get this staggering reality. 26% of the entire nation is strictly below sea level, and another 30% just barely above it. Millions of people are commuting to work, raising their families, and sleeping soundly in their beds on land that is literally sitting at the bottom of what used to be the ocean. I mean, the stakes here, absolutely off the charts.
Okay, let's jump right into Section 1, the impossible geography. Because to understand how the Dutch survive, we first have to understand the trap they're actually living in.
Think of the Netherlands as sitting at the bottom of a massive geographic funnel. It's located right at the mouth of three of Europe's largest river systems, the Rhine, the Meuse, and the Scheldt. So all that water from inland Europe is constantly rushing down toward the Dutch coast. But at the exact same time, from the other direction, the country is getting battered by the violent, storm-prone North Sea, pushing massive storm surges inland. Imagine trying to live in a sinking bathtub where the faucets are running full blast and the ocean is simultaneously crashing right over the rim. It's wild.
Moving on to Section 2, stealing land from water. Because for early settlers, just surviving here was a total miracle. But the story of the Netherlands isn't just about surviving. It's about actively going on the offensive and conquering the sea.
And that brings us to a concept that completely defines the Dutch landscape, the polder. A polder is quite literally stolen land. Think of it like taking a bucket, pushing it down into a swimming pool, and bailing all the water out of the bucket so you can sit safely inside it. It's a low-lying tract of land enclosed by a ring of embankments called dikes. They pump the water out completely to expose the seabed, creating dry, usable ground. And the Dutch have done this on a mind-boggling scale. Entire provinces, like Flevoland, which is packed with cities and forests today, were nothing but open water just a few decades ago. No way, right?
So how do they actually do it? Well, the mechanical process of poldering is intense. First, you build that protective dike ring. Second, you pump the water out. But step three is the kicker. You never, ever stop pumping, because water is constantly seeping back in through rainfall, groundwater, and rivers. This continuous 24/7 pumping is literally the heartbeat that keeps the country alive. If the pumps stop, the country drowns, period.
Historically, that heartbeat was powered by wind. You know those gorgeous Dutch windmills you see on postcards? Yeah, those weren't just decorative. They were heavy-duty industrial water-lifting machines. They used ancient tech like the Archimedes screw, which is essentially a giant rotating spiral staircase that scoops and lifts water up and over the dikes. Fast forward to today, and those old wooden engines have been replaced by colossal electric and diesel pumping stations. These modern marvels move thousands of liters of water every single second.
Now, this war of engineering, it's been escalating from millennia. It started way back around 100 AD with simple, low-peat dikes built by early Frisian settlers. By 1932, they had built the Afsluit Dike, which is an astonishing 32-kilometer dam that sealed off an entire inland sea. But the true turning point, the real catalyst, was 1953. A disastrous North Sea flood just tore through the old dikes, devastating the nation and claiming countless lives. That immense trauma triggered the ultimate, uncompromising engineering response.
Which brings us to Section 3, the ultimate flood defense. Following the tragedy of 1953, the Dutch government basically vowed never again. They set out to build an impenetrable shield that would push the very limits of modern civil engineering.
There's this famous, kind of cheeky saying over there. God created the earth, but the Dutch created the Netherlands. And honestly, nothing embodies the sheer ambition and the cultural identity behind that quote quite like their ultimate defense system.
Enter the Delta Works. And man, the scale of this thing is just staggering. We're talking nearly 5 billion euros and roughly 40 years to construct. This vast network of dams, sluices, and storm surge barriers basically took a highly vulnerable 700-kilometer coastline and zipped it up to a highly defensible 80 kilometers. It transformed volatile estuaries into calm, protected lakes. It was even rightfully named a modern wonder of the world by the American Society of Civil Engineers.
Now, what's really fascinating here is how the Dutch balance brute force defense with delicate environmental preservation. Take the Oosterschelde-Kering, for example. It's a 9-kilometer barrier with 62 massive gates, but it actually stays open 99% of the time. That lets the tidal water flow naturally, preserving the local saltwater ecology and the fishing industry. It only slams shut when a deadly storm is approaching. Then you've got the Maasland-Kering, protecting the massive port of Rotterdam. Picture 2 automated floating gates, each one literally the size of the Eiffel Tower, swinging shut automatically when computers predict a critical storm surge. It's like something out of sci-fi. All right, let's look at Section 4, the rising climate threat. For decades, the Delta Works provided absolute security. But the story takes a turn here. The climate is changing, the global environment is shifting, and these magnificent dole defenses are rapidly reaching their physical limits.
Let's just look at the raw numbers from the Royal Netherlands Meteorological Institute, KNMI. They track exactly what future scenarios the country has to prepare for. Under a low-emission scenario, they project a sea level rise of up to 73 centimeters by the year 2100. But under a high-emission scenario, that number jumps dramatically to 124 centimeters by the end of the century. To put that into perspective, that is a wall of water over 4 feet high, permanently pressing against defenses that were built for a totally different era.
And here's the crazy part. The sea level is only one piece of what is essentially a multi-front assault. You've got the sea rising, accelerating to 2.9 millimeters per year now. But at the exact same time, the drained peat soils of the polders are actually sinking. It's an effect called subsidence. Think of it like a wet sponge. As it dries out, it shrinks and compresses downward. Meanwhile, melting glaciers in Switzerland and extreme rain in Germany are swelling the rivers, sending unprecedented volumes of water rushing downstream into the Netherlands. Add to that the more intense rainstorms dumping directly on the cities from above. They are literally getting squeezed from all sides.
So the crucial takeaway is this. The old playbook of just building higher and higher concrete walls, it's just no longer a viable long-term strategy. You can only build a dike so high before it becomes unstable or just completely destroys the landscape. This harsh reality forced a massive paradigm shift in Dutch engineering. The old philosophy was to fight the water by blocking it out. The new philosophy? Live with the water by strategically giving it space to flow.
Which leads us to Section 5, make in room for rivers. This is their ultimate modern survival strategy, a €2.2 billion national initiative perfectly named the Room for the River program.
And this brilliantly illustrates the new Dutch mindset. It's called multi-layer safety. You can think of it kind of like defending a castle. You don't just rely on layer 1, the physical dikes and barriers, essentially your castle walls, because if those fail, you're looking at a total catastrophe. So you add layer 2, the moat and the surrounding land, sustainable climate-proof spatial planning that actually designs the landscape itself to safely absorb water. And then layer 3 ensures you've got robust crisis management and evacuation plans ready to go.
Check out how this actually builds a resilient landscape. Look at these engineering tactics. Instead of raising the dikes on the sides, engineers are doing the exact opposite. They're lowering the floodplains. They're removing obstacles from the riverbeds, digging entirely new side channels, and creating bypasses. So when the river inevitably swells from extreme rainfall upstream, the water has a safe, designated place to overflow without wiping out populated areas. This whole philosophy of living with water has completely infiltrated everyday Dutch life and urban design. I mean, they are doing the unthinkable, intentionally relocating farms and moving dikes further inland away from the shores just to widen the rivers. In the cities, new housing developments are being constructed on floating platforms that simply rise up with the water level, or they're built on ancient-style artificial mounds. They're even designing public urban parks with sunken basketball courts and plazas. Why? Because during heavy downpours, those parks act as emergency water reservoirs, keeping the floodwaters out of people's basements. It is just brilliant.
But listen, none of this incredible infrastructure works without the unique way the Dutch actually govern their water. This intricate web is managed by decentralized water boards. These are independent regional government bodies solely dedicated to water management. And get this, they are some of the oldest democratic institutions in the world, dating all the way back to the 13th century. They are literally older than the country itself. They levy their own taxes, they hold their own elections, ensuring that the people who actually live with the water are the ones making the hyper-local decisions about how to manage it. Which leaves us with a truly profound question to chew on. The Netherlands is arguably the most advanced, experienced, and well-funded water management nation on Earth. They are completely redesigning their entire geography just to keep up with the changing climate. So if they are fighting for their very existence, pouring billions of euros and centuries of unparalleled engineering expertise into just keeping their heads above water, what hope does the rest of the world have when the seas come for them? It is a sobering thought for sure, and one that makes the lessons of the Dutch lowlands absolutely vital for our shared global future. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep questioning the world around you.